that we'll have. With that, I now yield to the ranking member, Mr. McGovern, for any comments he wishes to make.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and we have a lot of bills that are going to be put into one rule, so my opening might be just a little bit longer than normal. But before I begin today, this is our first meeting since 2 federal officers shot and killed an American citizen, a VA ICU nurse, Alex Pretti. Alex was exercising his First Amendment right by filming federal agents on a public street. He was also exercising his Second Amendment right as a law-abiding gun owner in legal possession of his firearm. And for the outrageous crime of helping a woman get off the ground after she had been pushed over, he was punished with death, shot and killed by his own government. Now, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for him and the other victims of government violence in Minneapolis, including Renee Good, who was also shot and killed a few weeks ago.
Without objection.
Madam Chair, let me first address the government funding package, which was added to our agenda over the weekend. And let me be crystal clear. I will be voting no on this funding package. I refuse to send another cent to Stephen Miller or Kristi Noem. They are undermining our Constitution, and the department they run is murdering American citizens in the streets. She ought to be impeached, and he ought to be fired. I think their words and actions are disgusting. I just checked social media. Neither one of them has retracted or apologized for smearing Alex Pretti or slandering him as a domestic terrorist or an assassin there to massacre law enforcement. Those were lies. Lies that were whipped up and spread by people in positions of authority who immediately sought to exploit the murder of a federal employee for their own partisan politics. And I refuse to fund such a lawless, out-of-control agency. I will not vote for business as usual while mass agents break into people's homes without a judicial warrant in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Just last week, a United States District Court judge said that ICE, and I quote, likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence, end quote. That is inexcusable. And I have heard the argument that ICE already has plenty of money. Why not just vote for a 2-week CR? Well, I'm not voting to fund this agency for 2 seconds, let alone 2 weeks. They are terrorizing our communities and acting like they're above the law. That is my red line, and I think it should be the red line for all of us. And by the way, I also don't support the massive glut of unlimited military funding in the rest of the package either. Why on earth are we giving more to the so-called Department of War when the so-called President of Peace is threatening to use money that we're appropriating to invade allies, bomb Venezuela, and break the law? We're giving Pete Hegseth more money than he asked for. I mean, really? Pete Hegseth, the guy who leaked classified secrets on Signal, the guy who's illegally bombing boats in the Caribbean and committing war crimes while he's doing it. So I was a no 2 weeks ago, and now I'm a hell no. And on top of all of that, we get to the Republican attempt to shift blame away from Trump's connections to Jeffrey Epstein and pretend like they are in favor of transparency when in fact they are not. People can go back and rewatch the tapes. Republicans on this committee voted 9 times against releasing the files. 9 times they voted to keep the files hidden, and we all know why. It was Trump himself who said that he would release the files, but then he changed his tune the second he won. In fact, we had to go around Republican leadership in this committee. We had to go around this committee in Congress just to get a vote on a bill that he reluctantly signed into law. Now, none of that is a surprise, because according to our president, Epstein was, quote, a terrific guy and a lot of fun to be around. Trump said it was because Epstein liked women on the younger side. I mean, and Jeffrey Epstein loved him back. I was Donald Trump's closest friend. That's what he said. He let his closest friend fly on his private jet at least 8 times that we know of. We also know the spa in Mar-a-Lago sent teenage girls to Epstein's mansion for house calls. And we know, because Donald Trump confessed to us, that Epstein stole a 16-year-old girl from Mar-a-Lago and then trafficked her to a succession of perverted, disgusting old men who sexually abused her. Epstein wrote in an email, and I quote, "Trump knew of it and came to my house many times during that period," end of quote. Wow. I mean, let that sink in. And it wasn't just Donald Trump. His Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, went to Epstein's Rape Island. His former top advisor, Elon Musk, tried to go to Rape Island. And his top confidant, Steve Bannon, planned to go to the Rape Island. And when Jeffrey Epstein died in jail under what most Americans think were mysterious circumstances, guess who was president? Donald Trump. And of course, let's not forget about Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice, who Trump moved from a maximum security cell to a country club prison where she gets to take yoga classes and relax outside all day. I mean, for the record, she's serving 20 years for helping Epstein molest and rape children. Trump said in an interview about Maxwell, quote, "I wish her well. I wish her well." So I get it. This administration is collapsing under the weight of their ever-expanding ties to a global child rape ring, and rather than do the right thing, Republicans are trying to change the subject. But please, please do not insult America's intelligence by trying to make this conversation about the Clintons. First of all, the Clintons have publicly called for the government to release all the Epstein files, unlike Donald Trump, who said he would release them all, but then he backtracked. There's millions more documents that have still not been released. And if the logic here is that anyone with ties to Epstein should answer questions about what they knew, I'm all for it. The Clintons want to cooperate. They sent written declarations of what they knew, and they were negotiating to testify under oath. When will President Trump testify? His name appears 5,361 times in the documents released so far. 5,361 times. Democrats want answers from everyone, including and up to the current President of the United States. And that seems to be the biggest difference between you guys and us. We weren't afraid of where these files lead. You are. And if you're afraid of where the files lead, you're not standing with the survivors. You're defending the pedophiles. And why is this White House still covering up the truth? Why aren't Republicans demanding answers from Pam Bondi about the client list? She said it was on her desk. Remember that? And why has the administration not yet released all the draft indictments or the FBI's victim and witness statements, which criminally implicate specific individuals? Why isn't Chairman Comer demanding answers from FBI Director Kash Patel, who said under oath that, quote, "there is no credible information that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked minors," end quote? Why aren't they subpoenaing Mar-a-Lago, Trump's, documents which appear directly linked to Epstein's trafficking ring? And why, after over a year of broken promises, and after a federal law required that all files be posted a month ago, why are we still waiting? If they have nothing to hide, if everything is on the up and up, why is this administration acting guilty? Why are they exposing the names of victims, which they are specifically not allowed to do so, instead of the names of the men who raped and abused them? Here's what their attorney said in response to the latest release, and I quote, "There is no conceivable degree of institutional incompetence sufficient to explain the scale, consistency, and persistence of the failures that occurred." Madam Chair, we should listen to the victims, and here's what the victims say, and I quote, "Once again, survivors are having their names and identifying information exposed, while the men who abused us remained hidden and protected." The victims go on to say, and I quote, "The public still does not have the full truth about who enabled Epstein, who participated in his exploitation, and who has been shielded for years. It is time to demand transparency and accountability from anyone who is involved in or has knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, no matter their political party, up to and including the current President of the United States, who is in these files up to his eyeballs." And Madam Chair, we are also considering today another crummy bill to try to strip the District of Columbia of even more autonomy. And let me just say, I am tired of the constant attacks on the residents of the District of Columbia. They pay taxes, their sons and daughters serve in our military, and they don't have a vote in this Congress. It is shameful. And on top of all of that, this Republican-led Congress tries to micromanage their budgets and their lives. It is wrong. And we're also going to be debating a bill that helps mining CEOs rewrite the very environmental regulations which help constrain their actions. More giveaways to polluters while Republicans do nothing to lower prices. I'm voting no on all of these things. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Without objection, any prepared statements that our witnesses